if they call us out. And
say, hey, how come you guys are so lazy?
Why are you 2 minutes late? 3:02.
How come you guys don't get your stuff together, man?
I don't know.
All right.
Hey, what's going on?
There we are, dude. We're a little bit late. They had to come grab me.
Fault.
I know, it's my fault.
Always.
I had to get a soda.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a good reason.
All right.
All right, dude. So what are we doing today?
It's all about ULM.
All right. So we're talking ULMs, but we're getting like deeper. Like we watched that episode last week. We're going like another level deeper, right? And we're going to talk about all those things like in a little bit more detail. We're talking about the ugly phase of the tank.
Ooh, bad.
Yeah,
Right.
so most tanks have them. We're going to talk about the fish that you use in a ULM. We're going to talk about the tank type, like what kind of tank you're going to use, and like some of the different aspects of different corals and whatnot, how it makes it easier or not.
One thing that we definitely did, talk about too much gear on your ULM tank. Not necessary. Probably not.
All right, and we're going deeper again, man. Like, not just saying too much gear, but like where we went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Also, like, don't overthink the chemistry. Oh my gosh, man, we do that. So, I don't know. Sometimes you like just try to solve like technology and like use all this like brain power, man, to solve some of the easiest problems, and you just make it more complex than you thought.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
One thing that we did do, and we thought about it, we really harped on it on ULM because water changes are a lot of work.
Yep.
A lot of work to do the water changes, hauling buckets, doing all this. So we really wanted to avoid water changes. So let's talk about that deeper. Yeah, don't do that.
We'll talk about all-in-ones as well and how that kind of fits into all this. And what happens when you start refugium day one. So like all of that's coming up, man. So we're going to just hit them one by one. But the first thing, what's behind us?
This is the UL. We did an update on this a while ago. Just kind of introduced the project, but we're seeing some results here with the UV test.
So for those of you who don't know, there's a UV test going on, and this correlates right into the ugly phase of a tank. So like we're gonna combine this right together. There's an experiment going on behind us.
It's exciting.
And like total results. If you've been following my Facebook, you've seen me throw up some little videos and stuff. Actually, in the hashtag BRStv group, I've been throwing some pictures and stuff in there too.
Yeah. Go join
that. Some of you might have already been following along a little bit. By the way, if anybody got questions, shoot them, and we'll try to answer to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
And so behind us, there is 6 tanks. 2 of them have no UV. One of them's got old rock. One of them's got new rock. And then the other ones, we got old rock and new rock. We got 4 other tanks, and they're running 2 different UVs. And one of the things that like we haven't like really explained super well yet, is when you buy the UV, it has 2 different flow ratings, right?
Yeah, there's like the Protozoan level, which is a super slow flow rate, and then there's like an algae and bacterial flow rate, which is a bit faster. And in my mind's eye, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I run it at the protozoan low flow rate level, then I'm already taking care of the algae and bacteria by taking care of things that are even smaller than that.
Wrong.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. So it turns out, man, that you should do the right tool for the right job, right? And I kind of had that same mindset too, like, because sometimes people just aren't thinking about it the right way. I think really the whole community probably is not thinking about this the right way.
Right.
And so the common thing is talking about the UV is talking about trying to save your fishes from parasites and stuff. And in that case, we want really long contact time to be able to kill the protozoa like ick and whatnot. Yeah. And the metabolism of those things and reproductive rate's pretty slow. Right. So you really don't have to like get the water through there that many times to achieve that goal. But with something like bacteria, like cyano or like dinos or algae and whatnot, and like bacterial blooms in the water, these things reproduce fast. Like often when you turn the lights on, you can like almost watch the dinos take control, right? Yeah. So these things go really fast. So in this case, you don't actually need that much contact time, but you need to process the water like a lot. You need to get all the water in the tank to go through this thing, man, like many times a day.
But to a point too, where you're not doing it too fast, where it doesn't have enough contact time to kill these things.
So luckily, you don't even have to do the math, because right on the product, it's like a specific flow rate range. It's a couple 100-gallon range, so you don't have to be super precise. Yeah. This is for protozoa, meaning ick and stuff. This is for bacteria and algae. It's super simple. So we got those tanks going back there. So let's just start off with, so you guys can see it. Yeah, let's look at it.
All right, let's look at them.
Yeah, so the first one you're going to see here is... This is just kind of, the control rate, basically. This is old rock with no UV here. So
we've got this big, giant skimmer test tank that we had built. We've had it for a long time, filled with live rock in the back of it. Now, this rock's been used in multiple types of tanks. People tear down their tanks for a variety of reasons in the office. We take the rock, We throw a bunch of it in there just to kind of keep it going and have rock at the ready.
But there's no light on it or anything.
Oh, no.
Right?
So you can't see any, like when you go look at the rock in the back of the tank, it looks just fine.
Yeah, if you pull the picture up again for us, you'll see that we started off, when it started 2 weeks ago on July 16th,
Yeah.
like it looks like clear.
regular rock.
Does not look like there's any algae or anything on it. And my presumption here is actually that it's old established rock and it was going to cycle better.
Right.
That turns out to actually not be true.
So then 2 weeks later,
2 weeks later, it's already covered in algae. Yeah, it looks terrible.
whatever algae was on it before or exposed to in that system, it just came out like you would expect.
Okay, so again, this is old rock, been in the tank. We started the worst way or hardest way possible, which is a bare bottom tank with lights on day one and just the hardest way to start a tank. And of course, it started algae. All right, let's see the next one.
Okay, so now it's
brand new Marco rock, reef saver rock.
Yeah.
This stuff has never seen a tank before on the left there, July 16th. And a couple weeks later, it's got like a little bit of a brown tinge to it. There's some bacterial film growing on it. And
it looks way better right now than established rock. Well, I mean, okay, not right now, but in the picture. So between the old, already cycled, pre-used rock that we just dumped in the tank versus buying some new reef saver stuff straight off of the shelf, dry, and putting that in.
There's no algae on it.
There's no algae.
There's a little bit of bacterial film growing on it, and it's getting worse, by the way. You're going to see the update on it, and it's actually, the tank is now super cloudy from the black bacterial growth. So if you can go back to us here. So now, actually, can you see? Well, you can probably see it right here. It's like super cloudy. You can only see a little bit of it. But now, we're going to evolve this conversation, right?
So those were our two controls. No UV on them. This is old rock and brand new rock.
And to keep the fish safe, right? It is not there to help with bacterial film or algae or anything like that. So let's see how that worked out. Oh,
there it is.
All right, there it is. So new rock set to the Protozoa rate, and you can see actually, man, didn't really have any effect at all.
No, it still looks just as brown. I mean, I can say that the water looks more clear.
The water, definitely clear. We don't have the bacterial bloom in there.
There is stuff on the rock.
Rock is definitely brown, maybe even worse.
And when you go over there and you stick your head really close to the tank and look at the rock on the right, or where it is now, there's definitely some snotty brown
it's worse than this picture for sure. This is that was last Thursday, right? And so we've been shooting it every Thursday. So it's gotten worse since then for sure. In fact, if you go look at that picture on hashtag BRStv, it's pretty obvious. So all right, so come back to us for a second. And so now, and that was the wrong setting, by the way. Okay. So that was there to save the fish, right? It was, and what everybody kind of thought is like, well, if it works in the fish, it would have worked from the other stuff, but it wasn't fast enough flow rate.
So what we're not seeing here is algae on new rock.
Yeah, definitely that is one of the stories here, is that new rock doesn't have algae on it.
That's whatever that is, and whatever's in the non-UV tank is absolutely bacterial. It's cloudy, it's snotty, it looks bacterial. We haven't stuck it under a microscope to make sure for sure, but
I'm starting to see what it looks like to be hair algae in this one.
Okay.
Like hair algae seems to come out of thin air.
All right.
But there is not any source of like the ulva and like other different.
Yeah, so not being exposed to algae before means it's probably not going to grow algae right off the bat, in which case it's more prone to probably grow bacterial type stuff.
Okay, so now let's look at the UV sterilizer, which is set to the rate to prevent bacterial and algae growth, right?
On new rock.
Boom.
It looks
like almost brand new,
bone
man.
white.
Yeah, like the water's crystal clear.
Yes.
That is got no growth on it at all that I can see.
No, even when you put your head right up to this rock, it's night and day.
In this side-by-side comparison, you can see like the slightest tint, but if you actually see it in real life and you hadn't seen the other one before, you'd say that this thing is super brand new, clean, and it doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So here's the moral of the story, man.
Yeah.
Right tool for the right job.
Okay.
We set the UV sterilizer up to cycle the water fast enough to process the bacteria and the algae, and it worked.
Yeah.
Right? Lo and behold, you do the right tool, right for job, and it works out. And it didn't work when you set it for the ick. you know? And so, there we go. So
That's pretty interesting.
All right, let's go back to the next slide here. Now, so this is the one
So we're
that's
going back.
old rock,
This
right?
is old rock that's growing algae in the control tank that we see here.
Yep. So this is the new story here. Is now we're going back. That was brand new Marco rock. Never seen a tank. This is old rock's been in a tank for 2 years. You can see in the beginning no visual signs of algae at all, but 2 weeks later it had it.
So really what we're kind of looking for here is if the algae and bacterial setting does perform on algae and bacteria. We just saw bacteria.
Definitely worked on bacteria.
Definitely works. Now let's see if there's algae.
Work on algae. Yeah, that's a good way to point it out. All right, so the next one is, all right, so this is at the protozoa rate, which is designed to kill ick. I would say it did not work on algae at all.
No,
No.
there's maybe you could say if you're splitting hairs, slightly less green on this
I think
one.
worse, actually.
But in the places that the light is touching, you can see absolutely that.
Let's go to the
there's green
original.
all over. Go back to slide 5. Okay.
Okay, that one, no UV. All right, go to the next one here that has the UV at the protozoa rate. I'd say worse, actually.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it's definitely not better, and I think maybe it
No,
looks
it's not better.
worse because there's more surface area that
It could
touches
be.
the light.
Right.
All right, so it didn't work. Lo and behold, so if you got the wrong tool, you're using the tool the wrong way
Right.
to do the wrong thing. We set it up to kill ick, did not kill it. Try to set it up to kill algae, didn't work.
Yeah.
All right. So what happens if we set it to kill algae?
Well, here
Boom.
you go. That is definitely less algae.
Yeah. So this one I got mixed feelings about
Okay.
because it definitely grew way less algae.
Slow, maybe slower then. So is it slowing
Slower.
the rate of algae growth?
It's definitely slowing the rate at which the algae is covering the rock.
Right, okay,
Right. And
okay.
I guess I'm not surprised, based on the conversation, what we're seeing here. So here's the thing, though, is I don't think it's going to last. So it's definitely slowed it, but I think over time it's actually going to catch up, and we're going to see a total coverage
Much
of the
like
rock.
we would. Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's going to slow it down. So here's the thing about UV, is it isn't going to do anything for anything that's growing on a surface already.
Okay.
Right?
Because it has to be suspended in the water column.
Yep, it has to be in the water column going through the sterilizer to do anything. So
Yeah.
if you got turf algae growing on the surface of a rock,
Not going to eradicate it.
it's not going to eradicate it.
Yeah.
It's not going to do anything about it. But if I go to scrub it off or blow off all the bacteria, like the cyano and stuff, well, now it has to repopulate, right? Or
Right.
if I turn over the sand or whatever I'm going to do, it's not in the water now because I've sterilized the water, so it doesn't spread as fast, right?
Okay.
So what I'm going to say here is I don't think that the UV sterilizer is going to, on its own, be the solution to removing algae from your tank,
Or bacteria.
but it'll be part of an overall approach
Yeah.
that slows it down, that gives your fish and everything a chance to eat it, your general maintenance a chance to catch it up, and it will prevent it, with the dry rock, prevent it from ever taking hold, and
Gives you a nice buffer. I mean, if you're talking about you just set up a brand new tank and you're going through the ugly brown phase and things like that, especially with this rock that's not been established before, not been cycled before, you might be able to get ahead of some really bad nuisance algae or cyanos outbreaks and stuff. So when we did the 750 XXL, we absolutely ran into some nasty brown algae, probably, and some cyano to some
And
degree.
bacterial blooms. Which
in
we
it.
solved with UV.
We did hang a UV sterilizer off the side of it, and lo and behold, we came back over the weekend or the next day. And,
It was next day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the water was clear again. And then we left it on there for some time.
Yeah, after that, it did such a good job on it that we left it on there for I think weeks.
Yeah, and then the cyano issue that we did have was then gone, which gave some time for the calcareous algae to grow on the rocks and take a foothold, and then pretty soon, we haven't seen it again.
Yeah, we took it off after a few weeks and it never came back. So it allowed the rock to get the right type of bacteria and organisms surf on it and fight off the negative ones like the cyano and whatnot, and that unknown brown slime that builds on it.
Right.
And gave it time for the rock to catch up, and then after a few weeks, you didn't need it anymore. So I gotta tell you, I mean, this is, I really like things that are compelling.
Yes.
That you can see with the naked eye. It's super obvious what the results are, and then matches logic. right?
True.
And like, oh, you're using the tool wrong before. If
Right.
you use it right, it does the right work.
That makes
man.
sense.
Like, so I gotta tell you right now, I don't think I'd start a new tank with that one.
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, I don't want to go like absolutes like that, but
Yeah.
like, if at all possible, there's nobody that likes the ugly phase of a tank. Nobody likes the beginning stages of a tank that like you go through all the ugly brown and weird algae and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and you start trying real hard by using like dry rock that's been sterilized, doesn't have anything on it, and you're just really going through all that effort. And I gotta tell you, man, if you can, like, after weeks have a rock that looks like that slide there, if maybe you can pull it up again, the one
Slide 4.
that one right there. Yeah, so it looks like that after weeks, and I can tell you it still looks like that. Well, the other ones all got worse. This one still looks like this. This is the experience I want to have with a brand new tank.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the word is yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I don't know
course
anybody
I
who doesn't
do.
want to have that experience.
I've seen the opposite end of that, and it actually, a lot of times people get into that ugly brown phase. One, think that they're doing something wrong because they've from what they've read over looking at old forums and reading posts that algae is this taboo thing, and the brown phase is this, any like cyanos and diatoms and things like that are all taboo things. And when you start to see that in your own tank, you're like, well, what the hell am I doing wrong? And maybe I should just not do this hobby anymore.
Yeah, that's the real thing. Is like there's so many people that experience these things. You just like nobody likes to show their ugly baby.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just don't see it, and you feel like you're the only one, and boo-hoo. And then sometimes people actually berate you too, like you're doing something wrong, which is terrible.
No.
So you know what? You're amongst many of them, and there's lots and lots and lots of ways, man, to solve those things. But here's the thing, dude. An ounce of cure, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So afterward, one of the things to talk about is like, could I put a UV sterilizer on these things and solve the issues that some of them are happening? And one of the things we might do is just turn up the flow rate on some of them and see if some of that stuff eradicates over time.
Right.
But if it's on the surface already, you're probably going to have like a slew of things now. Like if you have dinos, if you didn't prevent them to begin with, well, now you're probably going to have to do like a blackout stage, and you're probably going to have to do a variety of different things. And then the UV is going to help be a component of that overall fight. But better is never have the fight to begin with.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And so for me, I am convinced enough as far as, every piece of equipment like you put on your tank is a little bit of unknown value, right? But if, for me, allows me to enjoy it more because it doesn't look like crap, and it makes like my life easier and reduces maintenance, especially in the hardest time in the beginning with a tank, I'm in. I'm in. And so one of the cool things for sure is you guys are going to be able to see this on a real tank, because I guarantee that the tank that's going in my house is going to have a UV sterilizer on it now, and you're going to be able to see it week to week. Does it ever experience an ugly phase? Are we able to take a 360 gallon tank and avoid the ugly phase entirely?
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and like week to week, watch it in real time, man, and we'll actually be able to see what happens. So that was one of the things. Actually, I was talking to Terrence over at Neptune, and he has a pretty big tank, and I was asking him what he thought about all of this, and he's like, "That's probably why my tank had no hiccups in the beginning."
Oh,
right?
he started with UV.
He started with the UV set up properly.
There you go.
Right, and so he's like, "Well, that's probably why I didn't have an ugly phase in the beginning of my tank." Hindsight.
Yeah.
Even him, he's just like, didn't know necessarily.
I wonder if there's more and more people out there, regardless of tank size, who might be able to start thinking back to the beginnings of their tank, who may have set up a UV and think back and go, you know what, I didn't have that either. Or less of it than what I can see people doing.
Yeah, I've actually can look back and say that, like, I didn't really put two and two together all the time, but some of the tanks, most of the tanks I had challenges with that had bacterial blooms and stuff were definitely bare bottom tanks, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they get stable after a year, but that first year, man, you're seeing blooms and more challenges in the beginning. So, you look back and you're like, oh yeah, that's why my frag tanks had problems, because my frag
All
tanks
bare
never had
bottom.
sand, right?
Exactly.
Like, why do my frag tanks never grow frags the way that my tank does? Like, I
True.
can't growth is my problem in my tank,
Yeah.
right? But when I try to grow them out on purpose, it just didn't work.
Right.
And it's just a totally different system with different things going on in it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and there's probably, I mean, okay, past the point of the ugly brown and the beginning and the setup phase, there's probably still added benefits with UV on the tank, longevity-wise. Probably you'd imagine too, right?
Well, so once you've paid for it, like, what are you gonna do?
Hey,
Like, turn it off?
You're not going to take
Yeah.
it off and wait till you start a new
Tanks
tank.
always have these like weird little, poofs of something.
There is.
Everybody runs into them from time to time, and usually it's tied to like a particularly fun summer, or like work really took over your life for a few months or whatever.
Making massive changes in your tank, like pulling the sand bed out, BRS 160.
You got a new girlfriend, and whatever it might be, man. Like something took over your life for a little bit, and then your tank kind of usually goes down with it. So if you have some things that like help you bridge those gaps
Right.
in between there, man,
Right.
that is, and also like ultra low maintenance ways to bridge the gaps.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I gotta tell you, I think the UV sterilizer nails this all the way on ultra low maintenance. Like it will help you bridge the most important gaps in the beginning of the tank. So
That's cool.
all right, man. So like,
So we're going to expand on this one, though.
yeah,
down the road,
yeah.
too.
So,
Well,
go ahead.
in a couple weeks, we're probably going to talk about UV, just UV, as we're going to give this. I mean, you saw the results in like 2 weeks here. We're going to have 2 more weeks of whatever these tanks look like, in alive in a couple weeks. Probably talk about it again. But we're probably going to switch it up too then.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go around some of the tanks here and suck out. Some of them have dinos, some of them cyano, some of them have weird undisclosed brown algae, and some of them have bryopsis. We're gonna suck all that stuff out of those tanks, make a little slurry of it, and we're gonna dose it to all of these tanks in 2 weeks, right? So at about the month mark, we're going to dose it and like make sure that all of these things have been introduced to the tank
Right.
at some point here. Does the sterilizer prevent them from dominating the tank? Right.
Yeah.
Most notably, the dry rock that definitely didn't have any of those things on to
Right.
begin with, and is working now. If it gets introduced, will it prevent it from taking over?
That's pretty cool.
Like, I don't know. I think it's going to work on the bacteria.
But
On
the
the bryopsis,
bryopsis,
I don't know, but if it does, man, like a home run,
Yeah.
right? I have low expectation on the bryopsis, but we will see.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the bryopsis bits are going to land somewhere on the rock.
Gonna get a
and
foothold.
get a foothold.
Yeah.
But like we will definitely see, and we'll see the difference between whether or not the dinos and stuff like that take over.
That's
or
kind
not.
of the big one. Like, you see dinos, and you see questions about how to cure dinos, or how to take care of dinos, or how to get rid of dinos. So,
This is one thing I can tell you for sure. Anyone who's run into a real problem of dinos, there's misdiagnosed all the time.
Yeah.
But a real one, they're so hard to deal with. If I told you in the beginning, would you have spent $300 on a sterilizer
not have that?
to never even know what this is? Dude, I'd
Yeah.
spend 4 times that much,
Once you've
right?
seen it.
And like, 'cause what's ultimately going to happen is I'm going to shut this thing down. And I probably killed that much in coral already.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the people do that. So,
Interesting.
all right, let's answer a couple of questions here,
Yeah, we got a
and then
bunch.
we'll move on to the next one. We're going to talk about some ULM fishes and how we approach that.
yeah, for sure. Let's start with Odile, who threw up some $5 for a soda.
Oh,
Thanks.
hey, thank you very much.
That's Orion,
Ah,
got a
soda. Right on.
Okay. Christopher, how often do you need to change your UV bulbs? I think that's kind of one I'm seeing running around here. Is
9,000 hours.
Yeah.
So that's approximately a year.
About a year.
And so for for those of you who don't know, that's one of those things that's kind of differentiates between some of the different brands out there. Is they fudge that, or they rate it at 50% bulb life or whatnot. I just went through this with the Emperor Aquatics ones, and they the rating for the UV and how long it lasts is based on end of bulb life, and so it will last 9,000 hours, and you can run it at the same strength the whole time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So,
One year.
that initial investment gets me through a year.
Yeah, one of the other questions that people like, this is one of those things where like, oh yeah, it probably adds heat. People ask all the time, does a UV add heat, right? Well, probably.
Okay.
But these are 18-watt UV sterilizers, which means if they are 100% inefficient and don't do anything but generate heat, It
18
can't be
watts.
worse than an 18-watt heater, which is nothing.
Which doesn't really, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't even heat a 12-gallon, 10-gallon,
Nothing.
20-gallon tank with 18
Absolutely
watts.
nothing. And it isn't 100% inefficient, you
Right.
know. So, so what I'd say is, I just wouldn't, unless you're in a really bad spot and already riding the edge, where 10 watts of heat is going to make the difference. I don't think it's going to make any difference to most people. So I just wouldn't be concerned about. That's just a super common question. So I thought I'd bring it up. And once you hear the answer, like, oh yeah, if it only takes 18 watts, how could it ever possibly do that?
Yeah.
So, all right.
This is a really good question here. I think scroll up a little bit to the top, right there. Mike asks, so using the algae flow rate, though, won't work against parasites?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a solve for that too, is, like we did with the 750XXL, you can source your fish parasite-free. I mean, there's a cost to that also, or you can set up a system of your own and avoid parasites altogether too. But I mean, when you're bringing in frag plugs with Aptasia on it, you're bringing in
anything could have
possible
it at some point in
parasites.
time.
Yeah.
So this is what I'd say is this is the thing that's come up in the Facebook group over and over and over and over again.
Right. Which is more important?
Yeah. So it's not which is more important, man. Like,
both are
pick
important.
the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
I want my tank to look good and avoid the ugly phase. I don't want dinos. Set it up to that. If you want one to protect your fish from the parasites, set it up for that, which means about 6 times less flow.
Right.
And so 50 gallons, in this case it's like 50 gallons versus 300, right? An hour.
Yeah.
So, and then the question is, well, could I run both? And the answer is yes. And so since a lot of people are running dual
UV?
returns.
Oh, right.
So you have 2 UVs, one set up for each purpose. And then the next obvious question is, well, could I just get one giant one? And the answer is yes, you could get one giant one that does both, right?
Yeah.
And just run it at the flow rate, a super high powered one. But if you do the math on it, it's really, really big, right? So you have to get 6 times the size of the one that you would normally get,
Yeah.
And so
for people with tanks like over 100 some gallons or in the 100 plus gallon range, we're talking the biggest, some of the biggest ones out there.
So I'd say for some people in that 160 gallon range or 180 or whatever below, you can probably get one giant 80 watt or 120 watt one or something like that.
Right.
But after you start to get a really big tank, the size of UV would be obnoxious, and you'd just be better off just getting 2 and running on both returns.
Yeah.
So if you want to achieve both goals, but maybe you don't. Again, it may actually be cheaper for you to just source your fish from somebody that has really, really good quarantine habits. And the one that I know best, that I trust the most, again, is Elliot over at Marine Collectors. So, I keep saying his name, which keeps decreasing the chances that he's going to get me my fish. So I got to stop saying that. But I think that might be a better. It's probably a more effective route as well. But here's the thing: I'm going to probably set up 2 for both both for my fish, as well as make sure it looks nice all the time.
Okay.
And this is the reason why. This is kind of my dream tank at the end here, and I'm not going to just put any random fish in it. I'm going to start to collect my favorite fish over time that I'm going to care for decades. I'm going to keep these guys alive forever.
Yeah.
Right? And so some of them will probably be pretty expensive, and some people probably gift me nice ones. I have some nice friends in the industry, and I want to respect what they've given me, and take care of them properly. So the $300 sterilizer is nothing in comparison to the amount of money that goes into fish for a 360 gallon tank, right? So to me, it's a no-brainer to set it up for both, right? In this case, anyway.
I mean, this begs a good question. I kind of see here in the comments is sizing the UV. I've always wondered, okay, so you see the size recommendations on these UV sterilizers. How accurate is that? Because if it's anything like skimmers, that could be
Skimmer's a made up thing, man.
Yeah.
So skimmer's a made up thing in the base because they have nobody knows how many fish you have in there. They don't know what your feeding habits are, and really, they're just kind of slapping pumps to larger, bigger pump, bigger tube, bigger pump, bigger tube, right?
Yeah.
And assigning a number to it.
There's some calculations that you could be made with you sterilizing a certain amount of water volume.
Yeah, UV is there's like a known piece of math or known math to the size of water volume, how many times it needs to turn over, what the contact time is, and what the strength of the UV is to produce a desired result.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's one of the things. Again, I like the Pentair ones is because there's a distinct number on it of the size range. There's a distinct flow rate for each goal on there. The fact that they stand behind that and they've worked with us to develop that thing means a lot. And these things are units that are used all over aquaculture. Pentair is like into drinking water. They're into industrial water, into everything. Everything water.
It's a big name beyond reefing for sure.
Aquaponics, aquaculture, and like all kinds of industries trusted. So I just trust their number, and I wouldn't suggest somebody feel the need to like spend money getting one larger than it says. You can just to cover your butt or feel like you want to, but sometimes the larger ones, like the high output ones, are actually shorter and more compact. So there might be a space reason as to do that. But I would feel comfortable saying that the rating on there is accurate, and I would buy the one that it says for my tank and not feel like I need to oversize it for its goal.
I mean, so we were talking about fishes and how does that relate to the ULM update that we were talking about?
Yeah.
So, I mean, our fish choices, I thought we had some pretty good fish choices for ULM. We thought about it. There was some utilitarian fish in there for multiple purposes, some fish that we just liked, like the clowns. But where did we fail on the fish selection for ULM?
Oh, well, I don't know if that one was so much as a failure, unless you got something on the top of your head.
No,
but,
I don't.
Yeah. I think that one was actually what I really, I've always liked having, I never wanted to start a tank without a tang. And this all goes back to my first tank where I had a yellow tang die, and the tank was doing awesome, even though I wasn't necessarily taking care of it perfect that summer. And then the tank just looks awesome, and then the yellow tang dies. And all of a sudden, man, I didn't put it together immediately, but all of a sudden, man, the tank just goes total to hell, right? Algae's growing out of everywhere. And I'm like, what happened, man? And it dawned on me, hey, man, that one fish was, all he did all day long is eat algae.
Yeah.
That was his living.
Yeah.
He's just in there eating algae all day. So I added a yellow tang back, boom, tank's fine. Right, goes all the way back to where it was. Now, I obviously learned that there was other issues there, and I needed to do a water change game that summer a little bit more too. But hey, these things just do that for a living. And then when WWC and Josh was saying, man, utilitarian fish, that's all we do is put fish in here that serve a function. And I don't do only that, but I make sure that there are some utilitarian fish in there. And so the bristle-tooth tangs and the coal tangs and the even just the yellow and purple tangs, they're all doing a really awesome job of cleaning the rock. My own personal experience is little fish lawnmower blennies and stuff
hit or miss.
They're kind of doing it, but not in a way that will help you avoid the ugly phase of a tank.
Yeah, right? I've had good luck with fox faces and stuff too.
Okay.
And some of my buddies too have had good luck with fox faces, and I see it a lot. People start talking about tangs and things, and I'm a big tang fan myself, and I'll fill a whole tank with them if I can. But there were a couple. I had a 40-gallon tank that it was a frag system that I just threw together I got off of Craigslist. And my buddy had an extra fox face, and that guy just mowed down all the algae that was ever grown in there was good too. So, utilitarian fish.
I would call that ULM all the way. If you have fish in there, and I don't personally feel like snails and crabs actually do as much as their cleanup crew. I don't feel like they're doing it anywhere near as much as what the fish are doing.
No, I have mixed feelings about that because I feel like every time I've ever put a decent amount of crabs and a decent amount of snails in my tank, they were keeping the beginnings of what looked like algae on my rock. And I mean, you can obviously see trails where they've gone, and I've gotten enough in there to where I just don't see the algae even start to take hold.
So the trails for me are the evidence that's not working.
Okay.
Right? Because I see the little trail of the snail where he was, but there's 90% of the other area where he wasn't, right? And so, he did definitely eat some, man.
Right.
But So it's probably different for each tank. And I will tell you the big like turbo snails, those guys are definitely mow down algae. They're also plowing everything over and whatever. My other experience is they tend to like die over time, you know, and then they're like little nutrient batteries. They just add all those nutrients right back to the tank, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. But fishes, for sure, man. All of the fish absolutely are just, or not all, but all the ones that we're selecting for utilitarian purposes, munching. I mean, you can just see them searching. Like, where's that algae? I want to eat it, you know. And they're just searching for it. So, like, for me, that is definitely one of the things. So, next one, tank type. We talked a lot about this in the video, so I don't want to hang on it too long.
Yeah.
But what is the lowest maintenance tank type?
I mean, your office showcases this. Softy and polyp and those types of
Mushrooms.
mushrooms, GSP. I'm looking
There's
at your
no
tank.
chemistry to worry about for the
No.
most part. They're super like resilient to all kinds of different
chemistry changes. Yeah. And I mean, you could get. I've seen some really awesome Zoa gardens that have all of the colors you could ever imagine, different morphs, different types of colors, and you can make a really amazing softy and LP or softy tank with Z's and P's and GSP and all kinds of stuff.
I will say that also the way that they grow like tissue, organic tissue, so much faster than almost anything else. They're just sucking nutrients out of the water too.
Oh yeah.
So for somebody who's brand new and you're looking for a low maintenance tank where I don't need to do as many water changes and stuff, once those things start going, they just suck all of the nutrients out of the water because they are growing so much more organic tissue than most other coral types.
Yeah.
So definitely that. Although year 2, which we're probably creeping up on here, the whole thing now is like 100% covered in zoanthids. Now growth is actually a problem. Like, so your new problem is how do I control them from letting inevitably, I don't know why, the ugliest one cover up all the best ones.
It does too.
And I don't know why never the best
brownest
one wants to cover up all the other ones.
Well, I even looked at your tank today, and the green star polyps, the GSP, that was we glued just like tiniest little frags on the bottom. It's coming up over the front edge of the glass. I mean, it's looking cool because it's turning the bare bottom into this grassy field type look to it. It's really awesome. But eventually, we're gonna have to cut it. And now we're talking about how often.
Should have been yesterday.
Yeah. How often do we have to cut it? And now that your rock work is completely covered with, I mean, sometimes you might not be able to add more coral in there because these things have taken all the real estate available in the tank.
Yep. So yeah, absolutely. So after a couple of years, then that eventually isn't the easiest one sometimes, just because you have to maintain the growth actually. So LPS tank is actually my choice now for a ULM, for somebody who wants to do this for a while and have little interaction with it, or little amount of work involved in it. Is because the LPS corals just grow slower, so your blastos and whatnot just don't grow so fast. If my frog spawn or hammer coral, the euphyllia start to grow, they're super easy to clip off some branches. It's not coating the rock,
Yeah, it's easy to share with your friends. That's my favorite part. It's like I can easily grab. I've done it with you do with favias and chalices, and you can pull some of them out, break some off, or break off the big mother colony, run it through a bone saw, stick it back in, and it's going to fill itself back out, and you're not even going to notice that you cut it. And you can share it with your friends, especially the euphyllias.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think those actually the better choice, even though there's a little bit more chemistry now. So you do have to replace calcium and alkalinity now a little bit more than you did in the other one. But honestly, we've just been using that all for reef 1 part. So it's just a 1 bottle. It has trace elements. It's one of the more expensive options, but you use so little, it just doesn't even matter. So, we dump it into 2 liters of it into the dosing container, and it lasts in many months. Doses 18 milliliters a day. Yeah. And it adds calcium and alkalinity and trace elements in 1 solution, and it just works. So, I don't know, adding chemistry to it really wasn't that big of a deal for me.
Okay.
We'll go on to the SPS tank. Can you have a super low maintenance SPS tank?
I think yes, but I think you're going to have to wait and do the work up front for the year, 2 years to get to a point where it becomes ultra low maintenance.
That's good insight, man. Because there's a lot of people out there probably like, hey, I don't have a lot of hard time with my SPS tank. It's true, man, but you probably don't remember the first couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or maybe you were super lucky. Or maybe you did something like Terrence, which has had a UV and you just didn't know why you skipped this hard point. You know?
Right.
And you just, this particular one was easy. You know, and so there are definitely ways to make it easier. But I would say if your primary goal is ultra low maintenance from the beginning, select something other than SPS tank.
Yeah.
Like, even if you want them, even if I want SPS tank, I should think about what my time limit is and what I'm going to put into it. Like, I really, really like those signal gobies, right? They're probably my favorite fish out there. Some people call them four-wheeler gobies and whatnot. And I've been successful with them, but I have to like spray stuff into the sand and feed them every day and put all this effort into it. And on a long enough timeline, man, I just don't have the energy to do that for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's
not ultra low maintenance.
It's a path I'm going to fail,
Yeah.
and it's definitely not ultra low maintenance. So even though I want those fish, I have to decide I want ultra low maintenance more if that's the case.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I'm willing to throw the ultra low maintenance in the trash because I want that fish bad enough.
And do
So,
the maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of reefers. There's plenty of reefer out there that just one either doesn't mind or that is their favorite part of the hobby, is being so engaged with their tank that they're cleaning and they're doing the feeding and they're doing the feeding the fish by hand, corals by hand, that they don't even want ultra low maintenance.
No, that's only if that's the goal.
Yeah.
So in this case, with the SPS corals, just if you really want SPS corals, accept that it is like it can be lower maintenance. There's definitely lower maintenance paths. Ultra low, like a softy tank,
Like
where
you walk
I get
away from
18
it for
milliliters of alpha reef every day, and do automatic water changes, and then, like that's it. It just looks awesome. That ain't the same experience.
Yeah.
Man. So,
I mean, to be fair, when we were coming up with this whole, you and I were sitting in your office coming up with this whole concept ULM and going through all of these, how is this ultra low maintenance and how is this ultra low maintenance? Like, we thought the hell out of that SPS tank, but what it turned into was we have to have every single piece of gear on this thing to account for chemistry, to account for the lighting, to account for the flow, to account for the automated the notifications, the alerts, the pH, everything.
My gear addiction
it really shined.
Ran
really
rampant,
shined.
man.
Yeah.
It was
double pumps.
and on like a tiny tank that, I mean, it took us 2 days just to figure out how to route the plumbing,
Yeah, that one
to
was-
have all of this gear on it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what really happens is you get this mind share of like, there's so much gear, and I have to like remember how all of it works and how it's all intertwined, and how like when the alarm goes off, like which one, like how it's working. And so it just actually is a million miles away from ultra low maintenance. There's more gear that fails now, and
so some inside baseball of how that SPS, kind of worked after the fact. So, I mean, conceptually wise, everything that we put and thought and did to that tank was like, yes, this is going to make it ultra low maintenance. And then you start getting into, when the alerts come and when the different parameters shift and how many moving pieces and switches and everything that there was on this tank. And you start to, ultra low maintenance is not me looking at my alerts in my phone, 100 times a day,
it's not.
because I either didn't set something up right, or I didn't set something up at all, or I've got so much gear on here that it's doing this and causing this and then causing this and causing that.
I will tell you, ultimately, though, the reason I think that tank failed more than any other one is I was not prepared for the learning curve of a small bare bottom tank.
Okay.
It
was our first
it was like
foray.
unknown failure point.
Right.
We couldn't pinpoint. It wasn't chemistry. It wasn't nutrients. It wasn't anything. And we just couldn't pinpoint it. And I'm just going to say that bare bottom, especially bare bottom small tanks, are just way more difficult than other ones. And that's definitely a big chunk of it, but because it wasn't there was no piece of equipment that failed. Tank failed.
No.
But ultimately, after it was done, and like, hey man, this is a failure. Do we want to restart this way? No, because I don't believe in it. Like, I don't believe what we did was the best way to do this, and so we had to move on. So, right next to that, man, was simple chemistry. Fail again.
Yeah, well, there's especially on the the SPS tank where there's chemistry is not really simple. So now we have things, because this was prior to a lot of those automatic type of testing type things out there, which still I don't know if I'd consider a monitoring type system like that me being my 100% go-to. I have hands off of my tank, but there's a level of chemistry on the SPS tank where, as your parameters you want so simple, so stable to provide the best environment for these SPS to grow in, and then two, if you were to get past like the year phase or 6 months or 8 months or a year and the things start growing, so do your demands on the gear and the chemistry.
So we also just outthought it, man. And so like one of the things about two-part is it raises salinity. Doesn't matter what two-part you're using.
Yep.
And part of the whole thing we're trying to do is minimize water changes, so we're not going to get rid of the salinity that way. So if you remember, we actually went Kalkwasser, right?
Yes.
And then we were worried about the trace elements going down, and so we went like Kalkwasser plus, I think, the 4-part from Red Sea or something. Yep. Like we did the math to figure out how much you would dose to match their system. And man, there was nothing about that was simple. I don't know, like at the end it was just dumb. I don't know. We were trying so hard to avoid water changes that we just made all this other stuff so much more complex. Like at the end, calling around buckets of water is way, way easier than what we were doing.
Right.
But even better was the automated water changes. We'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
And, but like just way overthought the chemistry. And you know what there's on there now is that it is now the WWC method SPS tank that replaced it.
In an all-in-one.
Yeah, just an all-in-one tank, no sump or anything. Mm-hmm. And it's just BRS 2-part, calcium chloride and soda ash. And then we also use part C from Tropic Marin.
Yeah.
It kind of creates a cheaper version of the balling method, so it has trace elements and stuff in it, really easy to do. And it's like, you do like $2 a month extra to add the trace elements into the mix. So.
Yeah, and the salinity is not really an issue then, because we have the automatic water change thing, and that's avoiding water changes altogether really led us to our shining moment of auto water changes and how well that works. So now it's on all of our tanks.
Every tank. So I'm going to tell you right now, that tank in a year is going to be the coolest tank in the whole place.
It looks amazing right now, and we're using really low cost gear on it. We've got the Ice Cap 3Ks on there. We've got the Aquatic Life T5 on there.
Skimmer that came with it.
Yeah, I mean all of this stuff is with the purpose of that one was to make it not your spend all money's not an option 750X XL. But something that it's a little more reasonable.
I mean, it ain't cheap, but at the same time, it's far from the most expensive path.
No,
right?
but it's on its way to something.
This tank is, I guarantee, going to be one of the nicest tanks in the whole place. Just because it isn't big doesn't mean that it isn't going to be the nicest, because you can have a super, super awesome small display that, done right, it can be way better than bigger displays even.
Yeah.
And because we set it up simple, it's actually doing even better than the XXL 750, right? That one's coming along too, and I think in about a year it'll still be like really nice. But this one is actually going to look full, I think. So.
Oh yeah, I mean it's smaller tank, smaller box, and the faster the corals grow, it may have the same growth as another tank.
It also didn't run into that power outage issue.
And we had the crash of the 750. So that was a
fish
setback.
crash, not coral crash.
Right.
But yeah, all right, man. So let's answer a couple more questions before we move on to a couple other ULM topics at the end. And by the way, we're giving away $500 again today, or up to $500.
Oh yeah,
so prefer reefer. So that's coming at the end.
Somebody's winning something $500 worth.
Ah, right on.
Let's see. Nick asks. Nope, that's not the question. So, here we go. Travis asks, where did you come up with the 6 times rate, and can you do more?
Okay, so the rate is not something we came up with. If you go look at the flow rate on the UV sterilizer, it will tell you this is the tank size this is set for. If you have protozoa, if you want to kill protozoa or like ick, this is the flow rate. If you want to kill algae and bacteria, this is the flow rate. And if you're using a UV sterilizer from some other company that doesn't give you that straight information, buy one from somewhere else, because they're not telling you how to use it properly to achieve the desired goal, and which means you probably won't. Could you still do it? Yes.
Yeah.
But like if you're going to buy one new, and buy one that is clearly tell you how to get to the goal you want to achieve.
I really like this question. It says, came in late, but what's the best placement for a UV sterilizer?
So I'm going to say that if I could do it, I would close loop it right off the back of the tank.
Yeah, this is something that you came up with while we were sitting here talking about the last in the last live at the UV sterilizer.
Yeah, skip the going through the sump and everything.
Yeah.
I don't have a super good reason as to this, but like I would like to just take water directly out of the tank, go through the sterilizer, and go right back into the tank, and not try to sterilize the sump and everything. Like, and I know I'm turning the water over in the display where it matters the most, and I'm not messing around with the sump. Most people aren't going to do that.
No, I mean that requires if you don't have somebody custom building your tank like you have.
Well, I think
Felix.
I missed this boat actually.
Did
I'm not
you?
gonna be able to do this, but
You feel like Felix said he couldn't do it?
well, I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's something he couldn't. It's like I've reordered the glass more than once
Oh,
already. So
okay.
yeah, we'll
But
see.
I mean, that for anybody else, for most other people, it would involve like drilling holes, creating the closed loop type system. And
It's off
most,
the returns.
Most people are just going to go off of the return or down in the sump, or they're going to mount it to their cabinet in some configuration horizontally.
Yeah, you got to make sure that it
vertically.
doesn't get air in it. So coming off of your return or your overflow is a terrible idea because air will get in there and it will just get trapped in there. And there might be some elaborate way that you get it out, but it could still trap air in later. So it's just a bad idea. So
Separate feed pump or the return pump, right?
Yeah. So most people are going to go up their return pump. So they'll just take the return, send it through vertically or horizontally, but with the fittings headed up so the air doesn't get stuck in there, and then go back into the tank. And again, if you are trying to achieve both goals, a lot of people are running 2 return pumps these days, and so you could set one for both goal. And yes, at the lower flow rate, I mean your tank, if the other one failed, your tank's now just barely limping along,
Right.
But it's probably enough to get you a long ways. And if you like your apex or whatever goes off and tells you, then you can just actually many times just turn the flow rate up, right from your phone. So yeah, all right, next one.
Cool. What about? Oh, there's a good one. Shadowwell. Hey, what about alternating the flow rate, algae rate during the day, protozoan rate at night, or something like that?
All right, so I've seen this question asked like 15 times.
Really?
Now, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And like just the last like 2 days.
Huh.
In fact, Nick came into my
interesting.
office and asked me this like no less than an hour ago. Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so this is my answer to that question: is maybe that will work because things like dinos and cyano and stuff tends to spread during the day when the light's there. They're photosynthetic.
Right.
But maybe it also does nothing and achieves no goal, right? Because you're setting it up now knowing that in both cases you are setting this thing up not to work for half the day on its intended goal.
Okay. Okay.
So
that's fair.
You could do it that way, but know that you could be doing absolutely nothing on your tank and achieving no goal at all.
So it's better to aim for 1 and be 100 and attack it 100% than to aim for 2 and 50 here, 50 here.
I would pick a goal
Yeah.
and achieve it the proper way rather than risk achieving no goal.
Okay.
That's my own personal take on it. I would not do it that way.
All right, fair
next
enough. So is there a special type of sterilizer, or is it a way to set them up? So is this a special type of sterilizer,
No.
or is it a way to set them up?
So there's I guess there's
a
a
few
special
of them.
type. There's 2 types of sterilizers out there. One of them is designed to do its purpose, and the other one's a toy.
Okay.
Right? So there's a lot of toys in the market, which is like, we want to sell a sterilizer.
Yeah.
So we've made one and put UV sterilizer on the front of it, and it's a toy, man. And it isn't. And it really gave UV sterilizers a really bad name in our industry because, like, they weren't working. They weren't achieving the desired goal,
Yeah.
right? So there's 2 types, but like most of them that come in these big long cylinders here, and they're large. Achieve the goal as long as you do correctly and you get proper advice on how to use them. So yeah, there's nothing special about it. I would say there's like unique advantages. One of them travels the whole, bulb length, or a variety of different things. But like maybe one plastic holds up to the UV better over time. But functionally, probably not a lot of difference as long as you're using one from somebody that specializes in that field and is respected.
Okay. So we have a few more questions. We had a lot of questions. Yeah, this is a good one you see all the time. Ciroc VSOP. Would UV affect copepods? And you see this one quite a bit.
So think of a size of a copepod, right? Which is, I can see it with the naked eye. Right? This is a much larger organism than like a single-celled bacteria or whatnot.
Right.
Will it, affect the population of copepods? Maybe. Will it eradicate copepods from your tank? No way.
No.
Right? And so now you just got to decide for yourself. What's more important? I never run into dianos, cyano, or bacterial blooms, or reduce the algae, or some kind of theoretical benefit of the copepods in my tank that maybe reduced 20%.
Yeah. Well, and
it's a clear answer for me.
Well, maybe even less than 20% too.
Maybe none.
Because a majority of them are probably not free floating in the water column. They're on a surface somewhere, probably in the rockscape, sand, or something like that, or in the refugium if you have a bunch of chaeto in there, and not really leaving those places.
Yeah, and most rock structures these days, your typical like Marco rock, has so many holes in it that they're all living in there safe and repopulating. It's not like the days of old of like just Fiji, which was like all flat, and there wasn't a lot of pockets for it for them to populate and protect themselves from predator fish. And so I would call this a complete non-concern for me.
Yeah.
If it killed some copepods, so be it. Copepods live and die all the time.
I found them dried up and stuck to edges of equipment and glass and things outside of the water level just because they got there on their own fruition.
Yeah, it's just not an issue to me that would. I just don't think it could ever. And like I'm gonna go all the way. Like I don't think the UV is strong enough to kill an organism that big. So maybe they're little babies or something. I don't know exactly how a copepod reproduces and whether or not they're in the water, but this just isn't on top of my list. So it's a good question because it's asked all the time. It just isn't a concern of mine.
Cool. Natal wants to know, am I correct in thinking that UV is not recommended when using the Triton method? Pretty sure that they say no.
So the Triton method has a very distinct thing, man. Follow this method, do it exactly the way that we do it.
Yeah, and it produces results for people who follow it exactly the way that they created it.
So, in that spirit, don't use it with them because they tell you not to.
Yeah.
Do they give you a really super solid reason as to why not? No. But like anything that's like based on like carbon dosing, like zeovit and stuff, where you're definitely relying on bacteria to clean your tank, I probably wouldn't use it there. There's another good question actually. So will it slow the cycle of your tank? Maybe it'll slow it down a little bit. I probably would dose my Dr. Tim's or whatever in there with the lights out and not run my UV. I'd probably black out the tank, even put garbage bag or something on it, or black out some paper or whatnot. While I do my Dr. Tim's, let it cycle, and then before I turn my lights on, probably turn the UV on or something like that. Most of the bacteria after it's cycled just even a little bit is going to populate on the surface of a rock and not in the water, so it won't actually matter as much as you think.
Yeah, I think even with that said, will it slow down your cycle? We are after we did the BRSWWC, a 4-month cycle is long enough to cover all of those bases anyway. Whether or not a UV is going to slow down, make it 5 months, 6 months.
I don't think so.
I think it's for those people concerned about in the first month.
You're shorten up that 4 months way down. Actually,
that's what I was thinking too.
So the other direction. So the other thing is will it prevent coralline algae from spreading? That's not a question that wasn't asked here, but this one's been asked me a lot, and I don't know the answer to this one. We're going to find out. We'll follow it in my tank when this happens. But the best way to get coralline algae in your tank is go find a rock of some kind you like that's clean, scrape it off and get it into a little powder and then add it to the tank. So in that case, a lot of times it's going to settle out, in the rock somewhere. So in this case, I might actually take a turkey baster and put it where I want it,
right?
And then let it kind of settle out without the pumps on for a little while and find its home. And then turn the sterilizer and stuff back on. Okay. But it will probably, anything that launches spores, good or bad, to spread,
make its way through it.
Will probably be sterilized to some degree. So you might see a little slower coralline algae. I don't know that for a fact, but if I were a betting man, I would say coralline algae it won't prevent it from populating the tank. It'll probably slow it down though.
It's much like the algae that we're seeing here in these results, in that the algae isn't completely gone from the UV running tank with the algae setting, just slower, definitely slower. So,
I will take that if I can avoid all the pests and have slower coverage of coralline. So be it, especially because the coralline actually, why I'm trying to get it to grow fast most of the time is just to prevent the pests. Once I get the coverage, it usually prevents the pests. So both those together.
We should show those people that have joined us since the beginning what we're talking about. With where are we at? Go to slide number 5. So we're talking about the algae and stuff like this. So this was the non-UV tank with old established rock in it. And on slide number 7, you see the algae and bacteria's flow rate with the UV set with the same old rock. So this is old rock picked from the same tank. And you can obviously see how slow the algae growth is on that one.
All right, let's jam on a couple other questions. We didn't get to the water change, but you guys heard that all before. I'll just say it right away. Use automatic water changes is way better. Automating the water changes is better and has higher percentage results than trying to remove them entirely. I'll also tell you that all-in-one tanks are super, super good ULMs just because it ties your hands and prevents you from overcomplicating it.
Helps reduce it.
And I also tell you we didn't have good luck with starting a refugium from day one. So if I do it again, in this case, I would probably let the tank cycle for the full period, have the fish in there and have some kind of nutrients in there. And I would definitely prefer to use lights that allow me to adjust them, especially if it's in a really small area, like right above the refugium, like underneath your tank. I want a light that I can adjust. If I have the room to move the light, then something like that Kessel H380 is super awesome because it's optimized for this purpose of growing plants. And I can raise it up, but it's not 4 inches off and not hitting it with the heart of the sun.
Exactly.
So hey, we're gonna jam on a bunch of these questions, and then just a few minutes, we're gonna give away that
somebody gets $500.
So a few more questions. Let's say 5 more questions, $500.
Okay. All right. Question number 1. So here we go. Alfredo. Why isn't the inside of a UV case covered in reflective material to make it much more effective?
So I don't think that's the kind of thing usually works. Usually just gets covered in algae or not algae, but muck and stuff. And so, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Reflective material tends to break down too, so you'd have to probably coat it in something. But I don't know.
But you you bring up a good point too about the difference of trying to plumb this thing on your drain lines versus trying to plumb it on your returns, in that there is crud going down into the sump where your filtration is, and putting it on the return lines gives it all the water the chance to be filtered, so you don't have crud going into your UV sterilizer versus the crud coming straight out of the tank.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't know. It's possible, but maybe not practical to be able to make the inside reflective like that. And I don't know. I don't know the answer why the manufacturer wouldn't do that, but I bet you it's because it's not feasible.
Jason asked a good question. Do the Pentair UV come with pumps?
No, they don't.
No.
So, and you know, another good question is you see UV sterilizers out there that have like slider wipers or whatnot, and generally speaking, nobody uses those on salt water because they tend to rust the wires or the rods and stuff. So you generally don't see people use the wiper ones on salt water. We don't even sell them. So that related to that, but they don't come with pumps. You have to pump water through it. It usually comes after your return pump.
Cool. Let's see. I really like this one because we've hit it a few times and we just want to drive it home. Kevin asked, what's the best flow rate for UV sterilizers?
The best flow rate for the sterilizer is the one on the product page, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So it says this thing's good for 130 gallons. If you want to kill protozoa or ick, here it is. If you want to kill algae or bacteria, here it is. So the best flow rate is the one that the manufacturer designed for that purpose to do the intended goal. You cannot try to achieve both goals with one. You have to pick the goal that you want to achieve, which either keep the tank clean and free of bacterial blooms, slimes, and algae, or protect the fish, or get two, or buy one that's 6 times as big as you need, which is astronomically expensive, and then try to do both. But you got to pick one of those things, and most people are going to run one and pick it for a goal. And I bet you that 80% of people are going to use it to keep the tank pristine.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
And you don't need so we have the Neptune flow meter on these, which is a great tool for dialing in the right amount of flow. But you could do just the same with a gate valve on one end, feeding it, and timing out how long it takes to fill a known amount.
Yeah, so usually you get like a gallon jug and just take a time how long it takes to fill the gallon jug from that, and then do the math to figure out how many gallons an hour it is. Right? Yeah. It's not that hard.
Super simple.
So yeah, I mean, super awesome flow meters from Neptune, but if you don't have an Apex, if I do have an Apex, I'm gonna get a UV sterilizer.
Get a flow
buy
meter.
the flow meter, 100%.
It's not even like astronomically expensive, and they work really well.
Yeah, and you just know that, and like the peace of mind of knowing that it's set to the right thing to achieve the right goal, and as you see more and more important that it's set up right, it means so much.
All right, 2 more quick ones.
All right.
Great. Craig asks, will UV affect a biopellet reactor?
Probably.
And you're carbon dosing, which is feeding bacteria.
So biopellets are a total unknown factor. I mean, anybody who says they know for sure the exact mechanism that all of this is working is probably either not being honest or knows something that nobody else knows. So there's general theory on as to why those things work and how they're working. So is it all the bacteria that's happening inside that reactor? If all the bacteria is eaten off of it inside that reactor, then the UV sterilizer shouldn't affect it.
Okay.
If it's kind of breaking down somewhat and feeding, organic carbon into the tank, and the bacteria is in the tank, then it definitely is going to limit that effect. So I would just go out and say that if I was going to run any filtration system based on growing bacteria to reduce the nutrients, all the carbon dosing things, I'd probably just wipe out UV and wouldn't do it. Yeah, I would not do UV if I was like running, Zeovit, which is half based on carbon dosing, half based on pulling this stuff out through the media. I wouldn't do it on I wouldn't do it on like Nopox.
Right.
I wouldn't do it with vodka. I wouldn't do it with biopellets. Can you? Has somebody out there been successful doing it? I'm sure. I just probably, those things seem like they're conflicting to me, and I just probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I like this last one here for the questions, which lets Ron shine here a little bit. Is there a video explaining how the sterilizers were plumbed? There isn't, but I think you can probably catch glimpses of it on your Facebook live, or on some of your Facebook live stuff. We can get some more pictures and stuff up here too. But I mean, this is a pretty awesome plumbing job. These are all-in-one tanks, so it's not like we have a sump or anything on them. But yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of it. So basically, we put a CHA pump in.
Maybe pull off that
there.
that note there. And there you go.
Boom.
Yeah, you can see that we mounted here vertical in this one. Just you probably wouldn't do this at home, but it would probably be inside the tank and come up around the back. But for us, we're trying to make it look fun. and he built those clamps here. So
Yeah.
these C clamps that come on, they bolt together, right?
Yeah, it's really cool.
And they bolt, yeah. And so he's going to sell these at some point. He's still perfecting them.
Because I think right now the solution is PVC holder clips that clamp on. So you would have to
super
mount your
expensive.
PVC and then mount the clips and make sure they're just right, slap them in, and then hope that it holds your UV sterilizer.
Yeah, so these are working way better, and so hopefully he will sell those things in the future to us,
Yeah.
so we can give them to you guys.
But otherwise, for the all-in-one system, it's a pump that comes, or a CJ pump that pushes water out, feeds the UV sterilizer, and then on the output, it's a free-flowing output, but there's a gate valve on the input to the sterilizer with a Neptune flow meter on there, so we can dial the right time in.
All right, so all the people who missed your questions, I'm super sorry, man. We try to hit as many as we can, so just keep them coming. But $500.
Oh yeah, we got to give away 500 bucks.
Here we
Don't go anywhere. We got 500 bucks.
All right. So for those who don't know, I don't know how you could know by now. If you're a preferred reefer, we give away either preferred reefer carts every week, or we give away your wish list in whichever one he pulls up first. So
That's true. This was a wish list.
This
winner.
was a wish list. All
Yeah.
right. Oh, cool. And so, yeah, man. So all you got to do to become a preferred reefer is hit the little tag on like almost any page
everywhere.
of our bulkresupply.com website. Like every product page has it right next to the add to cart or whatnot, and then add something to your wish list and or buy it either way. And Harish Patel from Waycross, Georgia, got a Apex EL controller from Neptune Systems.
Nice.
It's $499.95. He missed it by 5
Missed
cents.
it by 5 cents, but it's a
The
Neptune
max.
Apex EL.
Yep, awesome, man. We're getting a free.
Awesome.
Well, he doesn't own it yet because it's in his wish list. So he's going to use his points, presumably, to go buy this.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right
would.
on. I mean, for those of you who don't know, if your wish list has $200 in it, we've pulled so many of them. Dude, add
that
something
thing
into
up.
it. Get it up to $500 because that it hurts me. It hurts my soul every time I pull one that has
Cool.
$5 for the stuff in it.
So next week live, I think we're talking about the the amino acids test.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we just got an impromptu test. We finished up one that was based on the CO2 and or not CO2, but on pH levels.
Yeah.
And then we're like, hey, you know what would be fun?
Let's throw some aminos to it.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of positive luck with aminos. So we use Brightwell's Coral Amino. The reason we use that one is because WWC uses it there. We started using it based on some of their feedback. We saw some really good results that, anytime you do something, you feel like you produce positive results. So it did really, you know. And so what we're going to do is we took photos of it all along from the beginning to the end over a few months of never dosing that stuff to adding it. And you guys can decide for yourselves whether or not you think it's worth, adding something like amino acids and whether the color and tissue looks healthier or better. I would say this is a little impromptu, but at the same time, just like so much better than saying, oh, I used aminos, it did something awesome.
Yeah.
Did or didn't, I don't know. So
Cool.
We'll see that next week.
Watch that next week.
All right, awesome. And is there any playlist we're gonna suggest here?
For this one, I really like the. Is the UV sterilizer going to be a BRS recommended thing?
I will. So BRS recommended stuff. We just started doing this. People ask us all the time whether or not like what product we use or don't use or whatever, right? And so we just started doing a whole series of videos on like stuff like, hey, you want the best magnet cleaner?
Stuff
This is
we're actually going to use in our own tanks.
like not just
And why?
Not just we use, but we hear back from customers. We hear we know the manufacturers who's making good ones, who's making bad ones.
Yep.
So we see all the stuff. So we share that. So hey, right here, if you're watching this later, will be a link to the preferred or the BRS recommended playlist. You can watch all of those. They're like most of them are like 2 minutes long, man. It's
super
just,
short.
Boom, comes at you. Why this thing's awesome.
Scroll through them.
All right, see you guys
watch.
next week.
See you guys.